So, very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to today's panel discussion on the changing paradigm in education from information to innovation. I'm delighted to welcome our eminent panelists for today. I, Pranjal Gundesha, as the founder CEO of Intelligence Plus and the convener for the Innoventure Challenge, are happy to collaborate with Education World to bring this entire series called The Visionary School Leaders Share, where we have prominent school leaders share about their perspectives on topics that need to be discussed. And this is one topic which is very close to our heart because we understand as educators and as parents that the frameworks of education are changing and a lot of discussion needs to happen about these. So let me begin by quickly introducing our panelists for today. We have two amazing proactive school leaders. We welcome Mrs. Bhawna Khanna, the principal of the Shri Universal School, Ghaziabad. She's a seasoned educational professional with experience in both academic and administrative functions of the school, with over 27 years of experience in teaching and managing school administration. She's a gold medalist in physics and under her leadership roles, both in the academic and administrative front, her school students have done exceedingly well. She has demonstrated proficiency in assisting development of all aspects of a startup school, and her core competency includes in setting up school systems so that they can run more efficiently. So, welcome, Bhavna ma'am, on the panel.
Thank you so much.
We also have with us Dr. Ashwini Kulkarni, ma'am, who's a Bachelor in Engineering, a Master's in Management Science, and a PhD in Educational Management. With over professional experience of about 30 years, she heads the following organizations. It's a big list. She's the founder director of the City Pride Group of Schools. She's the executive director of IICMR Management Institute under the Pune University. She's the founder director of ATSS College of Business Studies and Computer Application and a management trustee of CMF College of Physiotherapy. And under her leadership, her schools have won a tremendous amount of awards, including the Creative School by CE Foundation Finland, one of the most ideal schools by the PCMC Corporation. Times of India has recognized them recently as one of the top-ranked schools in Pune. And of course, she has won multiple awards as a school leader. So welcome, Ashwini ma'am, for this panel.
Hello everyone.
And finally, we have Summiya Yasmeen, who is the co-founder and managing editor of EducationWorld, the human development magazine, which needs no introduction. It's India's #1 education news magazine, built with a mission to make sure that the pressure of the public opinion makes education the #1 item on the national agenda. EducationWorld has a readership of around 1 million people across the country. She's also the co-founder and managing editor of Parent World, India's #1 parenting magazine, launched in 2016 with the objective of offering parents aid and advice to enable them to nurture and prepare children in the complex challenges of the 21st century. She's an alumni of the Asian College of Journalism, and she firmly believes that human capital development is a prerequisite of achieving a developed nation status. So thank you so much for joining us today for this panel. And I'm sure everyone who's going to be tuning in to listen to this is going to have a lot to take home. So without further ado, I'm going to ask a quick question, which we can all answer briefly. And I'd love to hear from you because we talk about future-ready skills. And I'm putting that in the context of what I like to call it as the innovation era. No more are we in the manual, the industrial, or the information era. We're now officially ushered the innovation era, and our kids are going to grow in that. So we'd love to know from each of the panelists what their perspectives are on the innovation era, the top 5 skills that children really need. We begin with Ashwini ma'am.
I believe some of the conventional skills will still be very important. So we sometimes feel that the new skills will somewhere overtake the old skills. I do not think that, because we talk about problem solving skills, we talk about analytical skills, but I believe the first very basic skill of listening is very important. Right. So we have somewhere started thinking that it is not important, but listening, reading is very important when you talk about innovation, because unless you understand and you relate things to whatever is happening around you, that window wouldn't open to take in new things. Right. So, talking about listening and, somewhere talking about reading. Further, I would add it is also adaptability to the new things. So how relatability, adaptability, these two things also will be important. And the other things, obviously, as we talk about problem solving, creative thinking for me is, joining two seemingly unconnected dots is creativity. Simple words, because you should be able to read something and understand something different and connect them too. So if you develop that ability with children, I think children will be more creative in their own kind of an platform or their level. So this is what I believe in short.
Super. Thank you so much. Bhavna ma'am, we'd love to hear from you.
So, well, since I have been dealing with school, with children all the time, and the entire nation is undergoing the transformation, and of course innovation has become one of the key features of the generation, and of course the learning. So according to me, the 5 critical C's become very important. Critical thinking and out of box is something which is very important, owing to the fact that the kind of technological developments that we are facing in today's time, the entire chronology of the future options of jobs is going to change. So it is very important that the children have the critical thinking skills. Secondly, creativity, of course, very important, because problem solving and global era problems need to be solved. So they all need to foster the creativity, which will allow them to think and generate new ideas. Communication is a very effective tool, because without communication, you will ideally not be able to, and let the people know, whether it is verbal or written. In either ways, it is very essential. Collaboration and teamwork is extremely important for me, because without that, in today's time, you cannot survive. Key feature. And of course, one last thing which I would like to quote here is adaptability and resilience, which I think is very important, because if the child, or if any a person for that matter, is not able to adapt to the change, survival becomes.
Thank you so much, Bhavna ma'am. Summiya, we'd love to you because you're from the education space and the corporate space. It's a sweet intersection of both the worlds.
So I'd not want to waste time by, adding. I'll just add to what, Ashwini and Bhavna both have said. Of course, you need creativity, you need collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving. All these are essential 21st century skills. But I think most importantly, when we're moving into the age of innovation, the age of AI, machine learning, we need to teach our children things that machines can't do. Okay? And there is, the challenge of educators, that how do we teach our children to do what machines can't do? And what can't machines do? They can't think creatively. They can't solve problems in innovative new ways. What is AI? I mean, what does your chat GPT do? It regurgitates and sifts through a whole information that's already been put out on the internet. So we need people who will create the next chat GPT. So that's what, the challenge of educators is. And most importantly, to add to what, Bhavna and Ashwini have said, I'd like to add the skills of citizenship. I think in today's, our world, country, both, we need students who are active citizens. We don't need passive citizens. So the role of educators is also to create within children citizenship skills. So just I'm walking down the road, I'm a class 10 student, and I see a pile of rubbish. I don't walk past it. That's a passive citizen. So our role as educators is also to make sure that child becomes an active citizen. And lastly, another skill, I think, which, none of the other skills you have, it's not going to make a big difference to the world and to the country, is if you don't have compassion and empathy. So it's very important, in addition to all these skills, that, we teach our children also to be compassionate and empathetic. India, I don't know if you all have been seeing the, income inequality reports. Several Oxfam, the World Inequality Lab in Paris has come out. I mean, 10% of India's rich own 77% of national income. So they hide inequalities in the country. So we need children who have all these skills, but also show compassion and empathy.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. That was a huge area of skills, but I think it's truly summarizes what children today need and sets the priorities right instead of leaving parents in a cluttered mindset. So we'll jump straight into the crux of the discussion. Ashwini, ma'am, I'd love to hear from you some of the most successful strategies that have been integrated at the classroom level to encourage students to think creatively and innovatively.
I think that, as I always say, that whatever happens in the class has to be somewhere connected to their lives, right? So we cannot distinguish the school from their life. So we have to, as far as possible, then when we talk about environment, when we talk about, as she rightly said, citizenship, when we talk about social skills, social problems, all this has to have some kind of element in your classroom teaching learning. As we talk about, as she very rightly said, that when we talk about taking responsibilities as a citizen, so if you can have such kind of incidences happening in school, so we have a program called as Kriya, we call it as a Kriya program, wherein the children need to solve the problems which are social problems and discuss together. So there is a project manager in a group, there is an inventory manager, and they would actually take up projects which would solve the social problems, obviously in their own lives, that they could solve it. What happens because of that, these projects, when they are done in groups, the children understand collaboration. They also understand that how to connect right dots. So we use a strategy of working on projects. That is one thing. Secondly, we also, as very rightly she said about being compassionate. So we have something called as emotional bank account. So we call it EBA, that we have kept in our classrooms. So we know that children are becoming very lonely these days. So even if they are socially on social media, they are connected, and virtually they are always connected, but otherwise they are very lonely. So anything can depress them very fast. So in our class, every child is having one pocket of EBA. So we called it as an EBA account. So you can only deposit in that EBA account. So if somebody does some help for me, a teacher or any friend or even a tai or anybody, you will have to put in that particular child's pocket that what you feel for that child. Only positive. So you cannot have withdrawals. There are only deposits. So then, and you have to then, stick it on your calendar or your file. So whenever you feel depressed, you can, go through that. There are so many things, good things that I have done and people have appreciated. So such strategies actually bring in children a lot of confidence and a lot of positivity. Unless they are very positive about what is happening around them, they cannot further go ahead and do that. Also, as we believe that children, every child is unique is the tagline of our school, and we believe every child should try out everything. So till 10th standard, we cannot segregate that the child is a right brain child or a left brain child. Everyone has to do everything. So because it keeps changing. So within the timing of the school, we give them the opportunities that they experiment everything. So these strategies wherein everything is not connected to their marks, everything is not connected to whether they were good or they were the best. I think if it is collaborative work, it really works. Because children can then solve their own problems. First of all, they try to solve because that gives them that confidence. So giving them confidence is one very important thing. Being compassionate is another very important thing, as he rightly said. They have to have a belongingness in school, which they lag now in nuclear families. So this is another family, right? School is another family. So if it is not, they're not getting that at home, we have to give that to them here. So I feel that it's very important that we connect them. Then we also tell them about a lot of things about other careers from their childhood itself. So, so we have something called a journalism. We have something called as FM radio in our school. So these indirectly become their careers. We have a fashion designing lab. So again, every child should have something to look forward to go to school. Everyone doesn't come to learn English or mathematics. Everyone comes for a different reason to school, and you have to see to it that they get that in school. So I feel these are the strategies which work, where every child is thinks that I have something in here when I go to school. So in short, because
Absolutely.
otherwise it is very difficult to tell you everything what we do. Just trying to
Right.
compile it.
No, Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving some, case studies or examples from your school. Bhavna ma'am, we'd love to hear one or two from your schools as well. Successful strategies
So,
or processes used.
yeah, so as Ashwini has mentioned a lot of things, I totally agree. And there are, as particularly to my school, there are various strategies that we've been following, which do help us bring in the and encourage the children, of course, to think innovatively and creatively. So some of the common practices would be like project based learning, for example. So if in a science class, you can just take in a sustainable model of a thing and then ask the children to create prototypes or and then present their findings. So this not only encourages the problem solving skills and innovation, but again going back to the most important C's that we were talking about, citizenship, collaborative thinking, and then creativity and all that is fostered. So we usually take our lesson plans and our curriculum is designed in a way where we integrate all these in the curriculum itself to make it more functional and viable. So for example, design thinking. So design thinking, it's actually in a classroom where you've embedded your curriculum with the child taking a real world challenge, and then for example, a cafeteria in the school, how to operate it. So the child will conduct interviews, will do ideations of the solutions, make prototypes, feedbacks would be there, and then this will create some kind of an innovation to make the cafeteria functionality better. Similarly, divergent thinking could be one of the processes which we specifically use while we design our assignments, or we ask the children, we give them case studies and we ask them to interpret a theme of their own and then answer to the relevant situations. Similarly, a lot of cross-disciplinary projects that we do in the classroom, where one child implements the learning from one to other. For example, in the recent time, we did one project which was Fard Se Pad. So it was a Fard painting style of Rajasthan, where the children used that painting style and they depicted various historical forms of the country. So this is one of the interdisciplinary project. We are another project that we are recently doing is on the folk art, and we are creating projects using folk art in the studying of maths, science, and social sciences. So these interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary projects do help children think out of the box and make them more practices more innovative in sessions. Then also what we do is we create a lot of learning spaces in the school. So we use the concept of Bala, which is building as learning. So different parts of the school area is converted into learning structures where it's not just the classroom, where the child is learning. Even in the classroom, we make a collaborative seating where the seating arrangement is flexible and children are able to sit together and discuss. There's a circle time where children are discussing, on topics. And there is a discovery time where children have been given something. They're trying to find out, on their own. So creating, different kinds of learning opportunities for children to not just to confine them to the curriculum and the books that has been provided, but rather to be, open to learning anywhere and everywhere where the creative skills of the children. And one last thing which I would like to quote is very important, which is embracing failure. Because we see that children, in today's time, they're not ready to accept, that they're not excelling or they haven't been able to be through a competition or a presentation. So important is that, there has to be an acceptance that if, the child has not been able to succeed this time, what are the different strategies that will work with them to and the change in the approach that they need to make to in order to get through this. So I think
Absolutely.
like in a primary school, as I said, when we have certain very small competitions where children, everybody cannot win. Then we, have certain sets of secondary and tertiary kind of certifications where the children are encouraged to do better and the next. So these are a few of the strategies which in this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing them, in detail. So we'll move to Summiya. You've been at the helm of working with a lot of and knowing and observing a lot of schools closely across the country. What do you think are some of the most successful projects or initiatives that you have seen that have impacted school outcomes, learning outcomes in schools? Which have been implemented across demographics or boards?
So, Pranjal, firstly, I'm not a practitioner, like
Yes.
Ashwini and Bhawna are. So I'm going to take as a chronicler and observer of Indian education, as you rightly said, I've visited some schools and I've seen. So unfortunately, the majority of India's schools are still stuck in rote learning and teaching children to regurgitate in exams. Yes, there are, a few private progressive schools which are implementing good practices. Like, we heard Ashwini and Bhavna say experiential learning, project-based learning, activity-based learning, etc. But it's a handful. The challenge in Indian education right now is if we want to achieve what you just said, move from the information to innovation era. So what practices, my two esteemed panelists have just discussed, how do we take this to India's 1.4 million schools? We have about 30,000 CBSE schools, maybe another 3,000 CISE schools, and another 600 international schools. How we do take all this to the remaining 1.4 million schools? That's where the real challenge of Indian education is. And unfortunately, my observation from there is that, even among private schools, I don't know if you'll have heard of this organization called EI, education initiatives. About 4 or 5 years ago, they had done a survey within private schools, within this 30,000 I'm talking about, and they found that there also a majority of them, except probably, the top 3 or 4,000 schools which are ranked in the Education World India school rankings, even the rest are still mired in rote learning, teaching children for exams, etc. So we need like a entire mindset change. And I mean, it's all good. NEP 2020 says great things. What's happening in implementation? The devil lies in implementation. We have the NCF 2023. Let me tell you, if you look at NCF 2005, on the first page, it says exactly the same thing, which we are saying 15 years later in NCF 2023. It talks about moving from rote learning to experiential learning, teaching children critical things, creativity, etc. 2005 and 2023. What has changed? Nothing. I mean, I hate to be a pessimist, but that's the reality of Indian education. So that's one of the missions also of Education World. How do we build the pressure of public opinion, people such as yourself, not just educators, but also parents, to take this change to a larger level to answer your question, Pranjal, that needs more. It needs political will, it needs public pressure, it needs all these things to translate on the ground in reality. So that's a big challenge what the country is looking at. Yes, you want to achieve, if we have to achieve the ambitious target the Prime Minister Modi has set for us, as a nation, that by 2047, we're going to become a Viksit Bharat. We're going to achieve a 30 trillion GDP economy. All that is not going to happen if you don't educate and focus on human capital development. That's your true resource. If you don't focus on that, nothing of that is possible. And where does that begin? It begins with early childhood education and progressively and importantly school, because only then will you be able to reap the benefits in higher education. So,
Right.
I'll let
Completely
you,
agree.
I can go on, but I'll let you proceed.
No,
with the discussion.
speaking.
Completely.
truly
I
see your
completely
passion.
agree. I absolutely agree with her. And if your social structure does not change, it is very difficult. You have to actually change the entire ecosystem. Like, for example, in our structure, we do not respect.
Ma'am, you've gone on mute.
I think
Sorry. Yeah. So
Yes.
I was saying that I completely agree with her. Unless you change the ecosystem or the society or the social pressures that the children have, or the parents also, I wouldn't say only children, it is real pressure is on the parents. If you tomorrow tell a child to play, because he's good in, sports, do you ensure that there would be an, justified career awaiting for him when he grows up and he would be self-sufficient? Do we still say that if a child is very good in skills like plumbing, or maybe something which 100% would earn his bread, like an engineer? Unless we change that structure, people are going to repeat the same mistakes. Because if a parent comes to me and asks me that, my child plays football very well, but now he has a 10th board examination, and I wouldn't like him to play football, because usme kya aage jaake karega wo? Because there is so much of politics, there is no career, he will not get steady supply of his, livelihood. And I do not have an answer as an educator, because if you don't change the society and the careers, it would be very difficult. We do not give a lot of respect to the labor in our country. So, that is also another social pressure. There are jobs, you wouldn't get a good craftsman today also, but you have, a queue of engineers who cannot work on with hands, right? So there is so much of imbalance because of that, social. And another very important thing, I'm just, saying this, but this is very close to my heart. See, when the Britishers left us, they wanted clerks, right? That is why their education system was to create clerks. Whereas if you look at our old system, which is Gurukul, it was entirely on life skills. Right. But because they wanted something out of us, we continue doing that, right? We are still clerks. So our system is rote learning because we have to follow. So it is high time that we have to create a social structure where everyone is, everything is really valued in terms of, and we cannot talk for a middle class family. The inflow of regular monthly money is important. You cannot just talk about great things, right? It is, if that innovation does not bring that salary check every month, they are not going to opt for it. So our politicians and our society creating those kind of spots. I think this is, I also completely believe in what she's talking about. It's
Absolutely. So it brings to the forefront a lot of challenges that we see that educators and parents face when they are trying to ensure that the education that they're getting is not just best, but it can provide them employability,
yes.
which is important. And if not, uh, help them innovate in those spaces such that they become worthy of creating an identity for themselves, because we're also a societal structure where uh, reputation is very important. Log kya kahenge is very important. So, okay. So, considering that now, I want to really talk about, and I'm going to pose this question to Summiya first, since you've talked about, uh, initiatives and policies, leaving aside, the political, perspective. What are the initiative policies that can be introduced? A, to support. Second, to encourage, or I may say incentivize, the transition from an information-centric education system to one that prioritizes innovation. And I would love you to speak about what initiative policies from an educator's perspective, also from the parents' perspective, because they also need to shift that priority. So because all the stakeholders come in there. And then, of course, other stakeholders, if you want to mention that. So I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. So first of all, Pranjal, in a country like India, else anywhere else, education is a highly, political subject. You can't leave politics out. So if, the change which you're saying needs to be done, it has to be done on a mission mode nationally. So first
Mm.
is, we have to get the political will to implement NEP 2020, because all we're talking about moving from information to innovation era is all there. And NCF 2023, though it's a humongous 648 page document, it's very well written. And it has most of the things which we're talking about, teaching children critical thinking, creativity. Now, the point is, how do we get it down to ground zero in every classroom in 1.4 million schools and classrooms? For that, you need political will. And then secondly, I think most important thing which we all are neglecting is teacher training. You want all these great things to happen. It's not going to happen unless you invest in teacher training and train your teachers to, implement these new 21st century skills. You have to first teach them the pedagogies. They're still doing chalk and talk. You have to teach them the new pedagogies, the new ways of, implementing all this in the classroom. What investment are you making in teacher training? Zero. You have to invest in the country's teachers if you want them to produce the children which whom we are talking about, the 21st century citizens. And thirdly is something, education world has been advocating for a long time. You need to raise spending, public spending, GDP on education to 6% of GDP. In 1966, the Kothari Commission, 1966, the Kothari Commission said that spend 6% of GDP on education. It hasn't happened. We barely have crossed 3.5%. So unless you invest more money, all these things which you're talking about, moving from innovation, is not going to happen. And secondly, most importantly, I think you need to provide schools, school managements, and educators autonomy to innovate. They need autonomy. Cut out all these controls, liberalize the sector completely, deregulate. I mean, we are trusting our children to schools and teachers. Now you have to give them the autonomy to innovate in the classroom, to innovate every year. This is shocking a statistic, Pranjal. I'll just tell you, there's a think tank called Trias. Okay, they've done a survey called what is the regulatory impact on private schools of all these government regulations. In Rajasthan, 15,688 hours are spent by a private school management, including teachers, everyone, to comply with 86 government orders. And this only between, 4 years, 15,688. So if these same hours, a teacher, the management, the principal spends in innovation, imagine what benefit it will have. And lastly, you refer to parents. Parents, like Ashwini earlier said, parents need education. So the school and educator's role is also to educate parents about, what's happening new in education and why these skills are going to really are needed for the new 21st century workspace, where AI is going to take most of your children's jobs. And the new generation of parents, believe me, are smarter. They know what's happening in the world. And if schools support them, they will be active collaborators in changing the education system. So it's like, the whole ecosystem has to come together to change. It's not going to happen only with educators and parents. We need political will. We need everything. We need policy changes. We need everything. Only when the whole ecosystem changes, then you'll have this information to innovation era. Mind you, the world has already moved to the innovation area.
Yes.
Only the India schools are stuck in information era. Now you have to take them and move them there. That's the challenge.
We're on the path. So moving to Ashwini ma'am and then quickly to Bhawna ma'am. Ashwini ma'am, you mentioned something about assessments and I'd love you to talk about that so that we can prioritize innovation. If you could speak like briefly about that.
See, I always believe that we focus too much of assessment of learning. It has to be assessment for learning. So when we talk about assessment for learning, it is not wasting time in assessment. Right? What happens here when we talk a lot about summative assessment, though we say that formative assessment, ये सब हम बोलते रहते हैं, but finally at the end of it, it is, it is the easiest path that you take, that is summative assessment. Finally prove to the parents because you need evidences. I feel that if you move towards for assessment, it would be continual assessment. And I believe that it has to be a very close system, and it is. Rather, every Indian parent always worries about the outcome. For them, outcome is a result on the report card. So what is your report card going to look like will set what the parents are going to, because I believe it is not parents and school. Together only we are going to do whatever that we are doing. If we are talking a different language at school and a completely different language at home, the child is only going to get confused. So the parents also need to understand, as Summiya rightly said, that they also need to understand that what is the school expecting and why they are expecting. At the same time, we also need to tell them that, this is how we are going to assess your child. So we are now talking about socio-emotional skills. We are talking about physical skills. We are talking about cognitive skills. So all these skills somewhere are now going to be more based on not assessment, but observation. So that when the teacher has to observe the child in a particular way, again, as she rightly said, it has to be teacher's training in a very different perspective. Look at the B.Ed curriculum that we have. Are the teachers really knowing what they are supposed to do on these 21st century classrooms? No, they are. So they get
Obsolete
confused. And
curriculum.
I wouldn't blame them again, because it is a system which kills that creativity and innovation. Regulatory mechanism, I think myself and Bhawna would completely agree that, all your enthusiasm and all your, out of box thinking is kitna kill kar sakte hain, they will kill it. No, I remember 10 years back when we started all these skill labs, there was an education officer who came to our school and he said that, who allowed you to do all this? Then we had to show him that this has come from a government of India. This thing that they have got us, given us this grant, so we are conducting these labs. So, somewhere these regulatory mechanisms, if they do not understand, in a particular way that change, they should at least keep quiet, right? So, if that is also not happening, then it becomes very difficult. So, आप हमारे हाथ बांध के अगर बोलोगे कि आप अभी लड़ाई करो, तो it wouldn't work, right? So, I feel that assessment needs to be done in such a way that you really actually understand the child in different setups. A collaborative setup, maybe it is somewhere where he is going to express his feelings. It could be maybe in social connect. So if you create such kind of assessment tools, that would really work well. We always talk about their intelligence quotient. So do we have anything in our, so most of our, if you see our UPSC examination or any kind of, even the placements, when you get a job, the kind of aptitude test that our, we all appear, do we have any proper system to develop these kind of quotient? We do not have, right? Because finally, every challenge is going to be different for a child to face. We just want repeatability of what we teach, that they should show whether they have understood it well in their examination. But the problems in life are not repeated all the time, right? Every time there is going to be a new problem. So children are scared of a new problem. They would say it is out of syllabus. Because we do not have such kind of papers where, every time the problem is different. It is not based on this. There has to be open book tests, right? So I believe because they are going to have their Google, or maybe now the chat GPT in their hand, where they are going to give them all the information based answers. So something which is not happened before only is a challenge. So I think the papers very importantly should be set in such a way, or I would say assessment should be done in such a way that you give importance to what you want to do, because that will give a right signal to the parents, I feel. And when the children grow up through them as well, when they are in university level. Suddenly, in the entrance examination, you expect that they would now apply all the things that you have taught them in schools. They cannot, right? Because never we have tested them for that.
So, absolutely. No, totally appreciate
even one more thing, it always troubles me that in our country, pointed examinations decide the future of the child. So you have one JEE examination, you have one NEET examination. If the child does not do well in that examination, you decide that the child cannot be a good doctor. And whether that NEET examination tells you whether the skills as a doctor are there. No, it is all information based, which anyways he can do later on in life through Google. But whether he has that compassion, whether he is really having the serving kind of an attitude to become a doctor, all these things are so important. So pointed examination is another big problem in our country. If you see the abroad, the universities have a portfolio that you have to submit when you want admission. So
Yes.
we do not have, so it becomes very difficult for the, it is very stress points for the child. They get depressed, they commit suicide. We have seen that quota factory and all that. Why all these problems are there? Because one examination decides the future. Again, a big problem. So this is what is.
Yeah. So
Wonderful.
I would just like to add a small bit on it. Of
Yes.
course, the policies are all obsolete. It's been long, they were made and we've been following it like deaf and dumb. But, to applaud is that there are changes in the positive direction that are happening.
Yeah.
Though NEP 2020 has brought in a lot of, changes in the way the curriculum needs to be transacted, and a few initiatives which government is taking, which includes the SAFL examinations,
Hmm.
identifying, that the learning outcomes of the particular stages are achieved or not, would probably be a report card to the schools to analyze, what kind of learning teaching practices are going on in the school. And, that would also be a mirror to a reflection to look back and modify the changes that are required for survival in the 21st century and the skills that are
Yeah.
required. So, for example, if I just quote in a small incident in our school, we have already implemented the holistic report progress card, wherein it's not just the marks. Our report cards does not talk about marks at all. It talks about the different aspects, these learning skills, and the of course the stakeholders, which are the child, the parent, and the teacher. All three of them are, putting in the remarks for the progress of the child in a particular skill or a particular domain. So, small initiatives like these can certainly bring in the change in the mindset which is required to adapt to the changing, curriculum transaction technique. Yeah.
I'm so glad that we have school leaders here talking about innovation based assessment, holistic based assessment, because yes, what we value and what we celebrate is what we focus on and bring to the limelight for parents and for the child himself as well. And if we follow that mindset, I think we're guiding them in the right direction.
True.
So, uh, to you, Ashwini ma'am, once again, since you've been a school which has proactively participated in challenges like Innoventure over years, the students have done very well. Your student Satya Chera, who was part of the Trailblazer Fellowship, went on to win on CNBC TV. What has been the impact, is what I want to know, in terms of the mindset, not just learning outcomes, but the mindset and skill set of having and implementing platforms and innovation skills like these on the children's perspective at the larger level in life.
Yes, yes. I think here the role of organizations like yours play a very vital role, because you need some kind of outcome based kind of an work. So what happens with Innoventure kind of things, or maybe many such competitions that are coming up, they actually tell us somewhere whether you are in the right direction, because otherwise everything becomes very abstract. And for children to give them abstract outcomes is very difficult. They wouldn't understand that, right? So they need that kind of a pat on their back. They need that, there's some kind of celebration of their success. They need that ranking. All that is very important for the efforts that they put in. And also what happens, it is it is in a mass scale. So when they actually also listen to the others doing the same thing, I think somewhere they also get that confidence that yes, that this is what is happening around them. So you are giving them a good exposure as these components. That is why we believe in everything the school cannot do. So it has to be a cluster. In NEP, they talk about clusters now very well, right? So they say that, for a school, there should be a connected industry, there should be a connected profession, there should be a connected kind of an NGO, because they have to experience everything that happens around them. And you give the organizations like you all do that. Now we have corporates which have come up. I think a very good thing that we now see is because of the CSR fund that is now made compulsory to be spent on some kind of activities. Many of the corporates have come up to work with educational sector. So we have a company called as Dassault System. They actually do seed funding to the children, of 8, 9, 10. So they would do seed funding, they would give them some handholding by their engineers, and you will have to, from the ideation to the product, even selling the product, that journey the children see. So somewhere I think you have to become a job giver. That kind of thing comes through the competitions like Innoventure, because it is not that always that I'm seeking a job, right? Can I create jobs? So I think now creating a job is not, creating a big manufacturing unit and lakhs of rupees that you have to invest in the capital expenditure. Those kind of times are gone now. Now you can sit in your room, and if you have a great idea, you can still have a startup. So that kind of confidence they get through these kind of exposures. So I think that has really worked very well in our school. And we have around 5 to 6 ATL trainers who are engineers, who are fashion designers, who are animators. So they are not at all the teachers. They are not B.Ed teachers. They come from industry and they are full-time working in our schools. So what happens? They give them a very different kind of exposure. Because of these competitions, another thing happens that we always keep upgrading our infrastructure. So when we are actually creating a product, we need to have a 3D printer in our school. We need to have an idea software in our school. We need to have digital. We need to have all these digital equipments where our children would work. So, indirectly we know where to invest in also. Correct. Because we know that this is where our children need to work on, because unless they practice on that, they wouldn't get that confidence on that platform of the competition. So this competition is not a stress point again, because it is, as I said, it is not a pointed competition. It actually, somewhere, promotes their work throughout the year or throughout the previous years. So you've seen that the children who won in these your competitions, or those kind of, that child is passionate about starting his startup in the grade 7, right? So because he got that confidence through these kind of competitions that this is a good idea and I should work on that idea. So it has a huge impact. So collaboration is always, only schools cannot do anything. I feel is that it has to be a completely great ecosystem. So that happens.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate the belief and the vision of trying to connect with industry and to create a cluster and school as an ecosystem. So moving on to Bhavna, ma'am, I wanted to understand, what are your ideas on how can we support parents, or how can parents support children developing an innovation mindset at home, so that they can realign priorities and parenting perspectives, right? Would you like to share a little on that?
So, well, very difficult because each parent comes with a different mindset. The first thing is to align them with the vision of the school. And so, very important that the induction of the parents is done so that the school and the parents are on the same side. And then, importantly, with the changes that are happening in the sector, it is important that the parent also looks into change in, the kind of strategies that they adopt at home with dealing with the children. So it is very important. What we do is whenever a child wants to do something different and new, we nib it in the bud and say, no, do it the way it has been taught. So encouraging curiosity is something which is extremely important, because that will only encourage the child to explore new things. And as Ashwini mentioned, this entrepreneurial skills will only come, these innovative skills will only come when the child is allowed to think. We generally, curb or, stop them to think. We say, no, this is it, this is the way, and do it that way. So it is very important. And of course, as I said, parents need to bring in a change, and then we can develop an ecosystem where all the stakeholders are working for the child, at the center. So innovative mindset can only be developed when the school, the parents, and the society is put together, so that this change can be fostered in the environment itself. So for example, if you have to promote creativity, open-ended materials like art supplies, building blocks, craft materials can help the child to create structures without strict guidelines or expectations, right? Or for that matter, as I mentioned earlier, embracing the failure is so very important. Every parent wants that their child is the hero, is the number one. But then we have to understand that it's a path and it's a part and part of the learning and the growth. It is important that we take the failure in the right stride and move forward, gaining what the entire procedure has taught. Then very important I feel is that asking open-ended questions can give the child a situation or stimulate thinking and problem solving rather than having fixed answer keys to what the questions have been asked. So
Absolutely.
this will help the parent, help the child innovate and, develop new skills to think and present out of the box. Or maybe, expose them to diverse experiences, the experiences with children of different culture, different fields
Mm.
of study, or for that matter, different perspectives from books, documentaries, museums, etc. So, for example, in our school, we do a session with the children and with the parents where we called industry experts from different fields, not very conservative, but, non-conventional fields where, these kind of skills are required to innovate and bring in new things. So those kind of experiences help children think, we do not have just those 4 or 5 set aligned careers that are there in front of us. There is certain, beyond which we can also think about. So we are offering a vast array of curriculum in class grade 11, wherein we have geospatial technology as a part of our curriculum. We have food and nutrition, we have dietetics, we have healthcare, and artificial intelligence, of course, it comes in as a subject. So all
Mm.
these help children understand that it is not just the science and the commerce that is there, for them to study and build a career upon. So that also goes in when the parent accepts it, collaborates with the school, and then innovates or, I mean, models what we are, we at school are visioning and then brings in into the child. So the freedom needs to be given to the children within certain set boundaries, certain limits, where these ideas and these projects can be ideated. And this will help them, bring in innovation in their habit rather than,
Yeah.
adapting. So it will become a part of their personality. And then, another thing is that we can celebrate small achievements, because even celebrating small achievements will bring in that kind of an confidence in the child, that, it is important to not just to win, but even small wins do matter, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so to realign priorities and parenting perspectives towards fostering innovation, parents need to prioritize, curiosity, creativity, resilience. These are some of the skills which we need to prioritize over those strict academic achievements. Many parents come on that 90% means 90%. You can't score less than that, right? So we have to understand that not every child comes with, that kind of a potential. So what is the strength in the child? How can we, push the limits and let the child excel in whatever potentials the child has? So that will definitely help create a supporting environment and will help to nurture the qualities, the parents and the environment or the society at a large expects the child to be.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing those. Now, as a closing remark, Summiya, I would love to hear from you. You work with all stakeholders in the education space, and what do you think are the ways that we can really develop schools as an ecosystem for innovation? At a high level, macro, micro, both levels. You're on mute. Summiya, you're on mute. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
No problem.
So, of course, I mean, as I second what Ashwini and Bhavna both have said, I mean, happy we need more enlightened school leaders, as both these ladies. We need leaders to lead from the front, who can, set in an innovation mindset. But, more importantly, I think, Pranjal, in India, we are not, schools such as theirs, we are not doing enough to share our best practices with other institutions. Yeah, in India there's still this mindset of academic institutions being ivory towers. I mean, yes, we're great institutions, but we'll do everything inside our own schools. and universities, and we'll make them great. We won't share it with others. So we need to change that mindset. NEP 2020 very rightly talks about cluster schools and resource centers. We need to immediately implement that. I mean, why can't Bhavna's school, why can't Ashwini's school become cluster schools and resource centers? And what the amazing things they're doing for innovation in their schools be shared with schools in their neighborhood. And that's how you propagate and you build and scale up innovation. I think that concept of cluster schools and resource centers, even if you have limited resources, I mean, why can't a budget private school or government school in Pune, which is in the vicinity of their school, you know, probably 1 hour in a week, come and learn from them, use some of their resources. So that's why I think this concept of cluster schools and resource centers in NEP, I think it's a under discussed innovation. I think it needs to be taken up. That's how we're going to, scale. I mean, we complain about resources, but share your existing resources. That'll go a long way.
Right. No, I think that's a game changer when we think of innovation as our innovation to collaborative innovation. Because when there's collaborative
sharing is most important.
Yes, everybody benefits.
Who knows? When you share, your innovation may become by addition, subtraction, amalgamation, mutation can become a greater innovation, which can change the country.
Right, absolutely. And I think what will also emerge is not just that your school might, share its best practices and be just another. I think it becomes then a role model school, which will be looked up from not just the parents but the school community as well. I think that's a game changer in terms of for schools to move to a more collaborative model of innovation and resource sharing and effectiveness. So on that note, thank you so much to all the panelists, Ashwini ma'am, Bhawna ma'am, Summiya. It's been wonderful. We've had passionate, partly aggressive, opinions to a more empathetic, a more realistic perspective of what it really takes to change or to work on this changing paradigm of innovation, information to innovation, and if all stakeholders like school leaders, like EducationWorld, the magazine that propagates all of us, and of course partners like us, I think we're headed in the right direction to help children be future innovators and leaders. So thank you so much once again for joining us and sharing your valuable time.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful to meet both of you all, and all the best. Ashwini and Bhawna, wish you all the best. I hope you all lead and take
we will connect with you.
Education.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Thank you. All the best
Thank
to
you
all.
so much.
And I would just like to end, by saying that modern society is built upon two things: truth, which is discovered, and innovation, which is created. So let us all continue to create and, innovate so that as rightly said, 2047, we are known as one of the leaders of the, of the world.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pranjal. Thank you very much.